I want to ask you a personal question. When was the last time you thought about your water? I'm not just talking about drinking water. I'm talking about the entire system. The pipes behind your walls, the pumps under your building, the invisible pressure pushing the water up to your floor. Most people don't think about it at all until it stops. Welcome back to the Urban Collapse Lab. In our last episode, we covered the first 72 hours of a power outage, and I promised you we'd delve deeper into another subject, a system that collapses faster than most people realize: the water system. Here's the thing. When most people think about water loss, they imagine not being able to drink water. That's the obvious. But the crisis doesn't actually start there. Today, I'm going to show you the actual timeline of the collapse of the urban water system. Not 72 hours, not even 24 hours. For many of you watching, the countdown is 6 hours, sometimes less. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly where your building fits into that timeline. Let's start with something nobody explains. Your tap water doesn't just appear. It's constantly being pushed. There's a pressure system that makes the water move through miles of pipes, through your building, and out of your tap. Think of it this way. Imagine your city's water system as a giant heart. Water treatment plants are like the lungs. They clean the water. The main distribution lines are the arteries. And the pressure? That's the heartbeat.
The pumps that keep everything moving. Here's where it gets interesting. This pressure isn't homogeneous. In a flat city, the municipal pumps can maintain the pressure for most buildings, maybe 3 or 4 floors. But the moment you live on a higher floor, your building needs its own pumps, booster pumps. They take the city pressure and amplify it, pushing the water up to each floor. Here's the part most people miss. These pumps need electricity. No electricity, no pumps. No pumps, no pressure. No pressure after a certain floor. So where is that floor? It's different for every building, but there's a general rule. In most buildings, the natural pressure drops somewhere between the 6th and 10th floors. Above that line, you're completely dependent on electric pumps. So, if you live on the 15th, 25th, or 40th floor, you're not dependent on the city's water pressure. You're dependent on a pump. And that pump, like everything else in your building, has the same fragility. It's electrically powered. Now let me tell you what actually happens. Not theory, a real timeline. Hour 0. The power goes out. Your tap still works. Water still flows. Most people don't even notice the water problem in the first hour because there's already water in the pipes. But the pumps have stopped. Hour 1 or 2. The water pressure starts to drop. You might notice your shower is a little weaker. Toilets take longer to refill after flushing. Most people ignore this or attribute it to something else.
That's almost an 11-to-1 ratio. Here's the point most people miss. Your most critical weakness is your toilet, not your water bottle. When toilets stop working, within 48 hours, you face a sanitation crisis. And in dense urban environments, apartment buildings, high-rise buildings, neighborhoods where people share walls and ventilation, sanitation problems don't remain private, they spread. Disease outbreaks in crisis situations are usually not caused by a lack of drinking water. They are caused by a lack of hygiene, cholera, dysentery, E. coli. These are toilet problems, not water shortages. Problems. And these are measured in days, not weeks. Now, let me debunk a myth I hear all the time. If the power goes out, I'll fill my bathtub. Everyone says this. It's the universal backup plan. Fill the tub, problem solved, right? Here are the facts. First, timing. By the time most people think about filling the tub, the pressure has already started to drop. You might only fill half the tub, not because you're slow, but because physics doesn't care about your good intentions. Second, capacity. A standard bathtub holds about 40 gallons of water. That seems like a lot, but remember our numbers. A family of 4 uses 35 gallons of water a day. That's not even almost a day of normal use, and you won't be using it normally anyway, but still, 40 gallons disappear faster than you think.
Third, and this surprises people, contamination. In a damp bathroom, a bathtub full of water exposed to air, dust, and people coming and going will start breeding bacteria within 24 to 48 hours. Without treatment, this water becomes undrinkable after 2 days. The bathtub plan isn't wrong, it's just not sufficient. A 12-hour solution to a 72-hour problem. Let me tell you about something most residents never see. In older buildings, typically those built before the 1990s, there's usually a water tank on the roof. That big metal or concrete tank you may have noticed on top of old apartment buildings, this tank is a gravity-driven backup. When the pumps fail, gravity kicks in, at least for the floors below the tank. These tanks typically hold between 5,000 and 20,000 gallons of water. That's a significant amount. Even in the event of a power outage, it potentially provides several days' worth of essential water for a building. But here's the thing, most modern buildings don't have these. New constructions rely entirely on pressurized systems. Electric pumps pump water instantly. They're more efficient, require less maintenance, and the water quality is better because the water doesn't sit in a tank. All these advantages last only when the pumps stop working, so the age of your building really matters. That old building with an ugly water tank on the roof has a passive backup system that most sleek, modern high-rise buildings don't.
And there's another factor most people don't know about. Municipal water systems have their own backup systems. In most major cities, you have those elevated water towers, those big mushroom-shaped structures you see around the city. These are gravity reserves. When the pumps fail, these towers can maintain street-level pressure for hours, sometimes days. But, and this is important, they can't pump water up to the 20th floor. They can only maintain ground-level pressure. The higher you go, the more dependent you become on your building's own systems that need electricity. Let me give you the numbers in one image. From ground floor to 5th floor, the municipal water pressure is usually sufficient. Depending on your city's infrastructure, you may have water even if there's a power outage. From the 6th to the 10th floor, transition zone. Some buildings maintain pressure, others don't. It's highly variable. From the 11th to the 20th floor, completely pump dependent. 6-hour countdown applies. From the 21st floor onwards, dependent not only on the pump, but often on secondary booster pumps. Multiple points of failure exist. Buildings with a water tank in the attic, there's a gravity backup system for the floors below the tank. This can extend the duration to 48 hours or more. Modern, pump-only buildings, 6-hour countdown, no passive backup. Your floor isn't just an address, it's a location on a vulnerability timeline. 3 things you can do today. Practical, legal. It takes less than an hour in total. First, talk to your building manager. Specifically, ask, does this building have a water tank
Like a
in the
rooftop
attic?
tank? Yes,
At
we
what
need to check the
floor
specifications.
does the water pressure drop when the pumps stop? Does the backup generator power the water pumps or just the elevators and lights? Most building managers know the answers to these questions. Most residents don't even ask. It's a 5-minute conversation. Do it this week. 2. Know your water heater. Your water heater's tank, usually 40 to 50 gallons, is the water you can actually access in a crisis. This is your real reserve. Find out where the drain valve is. Make sure it's not rusty and clogged. This tank is your drinking water for the first 72 hours. A quick note: if you have a water heater without a tank, you don't have this reserve. You need a different plan. 3. At least 2 cases of bottled water. Not for normal life, for the scenario we just discussed. 2 cases per person in your household. Store them in a dark, cool place. Forget they exist until you need them. That's about 4 gallons per person. Not a luxury, a minimum of 72 hours if all else fails. So now you know. The water countdown isn't 72 hours. For most urban high-rise buildings, that's 6 hours, sometimes even less. The seemingly endless system, that endless flow from every tap, is actually a precisely calibrated machine made up of pumps and pressure. And machines need power. In our next episode, we're getting into a topic that affects every transaction, every purchase, every exchange of value in modern life. What happens when payment systems fail? What happens when every card reader says rejected? The answer isn't use cash only. Mathematically, that's not possible, and I'll show you exactly why. Leave a comment before you go. What floor do you live on? And will you talk to your building manager about this after this video? This is the Urban Collapse Lab. Systems collapse, information doesn't.